Welcome to The Big Rich Show. This podcast will focus on conversations with friends and acquaintances within the four-wheel drive industry. Many of the people that I will be interviewing, you may know the name, you may know some of the history, but let's get in depth with these people and find out what truly makes them a four-wheel drive enthusiast. So now's the time to sit back, grab a cold one, and enjoy our conversation.
Whether you're crawling the red rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2, Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Why should you read 4Low magazine? Because 4Low magazine is about your lifestyle, the four-wheel drive adventure lifestyle that we all enjoy. Rock crawling, trail riding, event coverage, vehicle builds, and do-it-yourself tech, all in a beautifully presented package. You won't find 4Low on the newsstand rack, so subscribe today and have it delivered to you. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we have Kurt Schneider. Those that are back from the pirate days will know Kurt as Kurt Tallis. At least that's how I pronounced it. Not sure.
Hercules.
What was it?
Hercules.
Hercules. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Like Hercules.
I was always wondering what that was. All right.
Yeah, everybody pronounces
Well,
it.
that's like, what was his Wheeling Demon? Wheeling Well Done Man?
Yeah.
You know. All right. So anyway, Kurt, thank you for coming on board. You got a long history in a lot of different areas, wheeling especially. Let's just jump right in. Where were you born and raised?
Well, that's kind of a long answer. Originally, I was born in Virginia. My mom and dad lived in Luray, Virginia. But my family, the Schneider family, is all from upstate New York, Rochester, New York.
Okay.
My dad ran hotels, restaurants, and golf courses. So we moved around a lot from there. But the summer between kindergarten and first grade, my father opened a restaurant in upstate New York, right off of Lake Ontario. There's a bay called Eastport Bay. My dad's restaurant was right on the water, so you could pull your boat up, drive a car down a hill to get to it, down by the water. And that's actually when I kind of first got into Jeeps. You know, those upstate New York winters are just miserable. You get the lake effect snow that's super thick and wet. And my dad knew he needed something four-wheel drive to get not only down to the restaurant by the bay, but get back up the hill to the main road. And he bought a 1977 Jeep Wagoneer. And during the winter, a lot of people wouldn't want to show up to the restaurant because they'd drive down the hill to get to the restaurant and couldn't get back up it. So Dad would get the Wagoneer, click that quadric track into 4Low. And back then we used chains. There's no tow straps. So my dad would tow everybody up that hill. And, when you're in kindergarten, first grade, Dad was just my hero. And on those thick upstate New York winters, he'd tow everybody out of the snow.
That's awesome.
But after about
that's how you get customers to come back.
Yeah. Well, during the summer it was great. My dad can write a menu, and his restaurant was awesome. But winters, by February, March, we're just destitute because we didn't have enough customers coming into the restaurant.
Right.
So going into third grade, end of the summer, my mom and dad decided, we've had enough of these winters. We're going to go back to Florida because we lived in Florida for a short period of time when I was really little. So my dad sold everything, put a bunch of stuff in storage, bought an RV trailer. And essentially the day I was supposed to start third grade, we got in that RV and slowly started working down the Eastern Seaboard. So, we went to Civil War battlefield after Civil War battlefield, Washington, D.C., just slowly took our time, just exploring. and we got to Stone Mountain, Georgia. And in Stone Mountain, Georgia, we stayed there a week while my dad was trying to line up a job in Florida. And we literally flipped a quarter. My dad was like, man, I don't know if I want to go to Florida. It's muggy, lots of bugs. And my mom's like, well, we got a job lined up. Well, we flipped a quarter. Heads, we go to Florida. Tails, we go west. And it came up tails.
Nice.
So we slowly started working across the deep south in that wagon. Spent Halloween in Meridian, Mississippi. Went all through Louisiana, through Texas. Right around Thanksgiving, we got to Tucson, Arizona. And my mom and dad start to figure out, they start figuring, oh, we better get our kid into school. So living in an RV park in Tucson, Arizona for a little bit. Then my dad got a little side job in Sierra Vista, Arizona, moved down there. And with my dad being out of work, that's one thing we did. In that Wagoneer, we explored all of southern Arizona. We would go down, rock trails that wagon shouldn't have probably been on, explored the whole southern desert. And then finally, that's when my dad landed the job in Yosemite National Park.
That had to be really cool. But before we get into Yosemite, is that why you have a Wagoneer now? And obviously your dad's was not as troublesome as yours has been?
We had problems. He had a few problems, but no, that thing, my dad's 77 wagon, it towed us. We actually went across country 3 times when I was a kid. I'd seen almost every single state of the continental United States before I was in high school. And yeah, I saw this entire country and fell in love with this country, from the backseat of a wagon. And that was my first vehicle when I was in high school, which by then it was all rusted out, and that AMC 360 was tired. So it didn't last me that long, but that's what ended up with me getting this one that I got now, the 1990. It's rotten up front.
Growing up traveling like that, I think is absolutely awesome. We get a couple of weeks every summer with our oldest grandson, Jacob, and he travels with us while we're putting on events. And we try to hit as many national parks as we can. He's been, to Pennsylvania, to Chattanooga, up into Washington and Colorado, and we take him to everywhere we can so that he gets that experience. And I wish eventually we'll get all the grandkids moving like that, but the 12-year-old is easier to deal with than the younger ones.
Yeah. Well, it had a huge effect on me, and it as a high school teacher, especially when I taught in the Bay Area in Hayward, I'd talk to kids in my classroom that they're an hour from the ocean, and I had kids that never seen the ocean.
Right, that's crazy.
I got kids at the high school I'm at now that have never seen snow, and I don't know. I think life is about experiences. You got to get out and see things, and especially at a young age, I think it's really good for somebody.
We just came across from Minnesota, and we're now down out in Henderson, Nevada, but the last 6 days we've been traveling, and we've met a lot of people along the way and had a lot of great conversations. And we were sitting in this little tiny town in upper Nebraska, and it was this old guy comes in with his wife and just kind of talking to everybody, and walks over and goes, hey, what made you stop here in our town? And I mean, it's a small town, like 900 people or something. And there was a sign off the side of we didn't take any interstates. We took all back roads. And so there was a sign that says cafe and an arrow, and it was like, hey, it's time to eat. Let's go to this cafe. Looked like it was closed, but it was open. We went in, there was a few people in there, but he goes, where are you from? What are you doing? And we talked to him, and he was 80 years old. He's been in that town all his life. He goes, well, I've never traveled much anywhere. I've been to South Dakota a couple times, and that's like 30 miles from this town, getting into South Dakota. And he goes, yeah, I've never been to California. And I thought, man, you know, that's a shame. You know, I know some people don't want to travel or don't have that need, but I do and always have. And so I'm glad that you got to experience it, and hopefully you've been able to share that as well.
Well,
So,
you know, that's one reason I got this Wagoneer from my buddy Chris. Um, I wanted my kids to have kind of the same experiences, which their experiences have been more like, you know, broken down on Indian slabs waiting for parts. But you know, they've seen a lot out the back of that wagon. I mean, my kids begged me to go wheeling.
you
You
know,
know,
that's a great lifestyle. You can ask my kid, who's now 38, 39 years old, something like that. He, you know, both my kids spent a lot of time up on the Rubicon when they were younger, out wheeling in southern Utah, and you know, the first trip Little Rich was on, you know, we rolled the car on him. You know, not on him physically, but he was in the Jeep when we rolled. You know, and it was on the Rubicon, and you know, it's just, you know, now look at him, he's pretty messed up.
yeah.
So anyway, go ahead on with your life story. Sorry.
We're okay. Yeah, my father tells me I'm a little kid, and he's like, "Oh, we're moving to California." So, you know, a lot of people's worldview is, you know, formed by mass media and TV. And back then, in whatever it was, 1979, I saw Chips. Remember that show?
Yep.
I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. I'll live on the beach, girls in bikinis. So I must have fell asleep in the Jeep on the way to California, and I wake up in the morning, and instantly I thought California was all beach. I had no clue. And I ran out the door of that RV, and man, the first thing that hit me was the smell of campfire and seeing these big tall pine trees. And I look up, and there's this massive cliff with a waterfall. I'm like, Dad, where are we at? He's all, California. I'm like, there's pine trees. But man, I am just blessed. Very few people in this world can say they've lived in Yosemite Valley. Even fewer can say they grew up there.
Right.
We live right in the valley behind Yosemite Village. There's a very small elementary school right underneath Yosemite Falls. And my dad ran the Iwani Hotel, the lodge, Curry Village, did all the food and beverage for all the concessions in the park. And yeah, I was in heaven. But my dad would always have Mondays off, you know, when the restaurants aren't as busy.
Right.
So our adventures didn't stop, even though we just traveled the entire country, explored all of southern Arizona. My dad would load me up in that Wagoneer, and we'd explore the Eastern Sierra. A lot of times we'd go down the Merced River. He'd find some dirt road filled with rocks and take us down to the river, and we'd pan for gold. So the whole kind of exploring and driving around was just kind of like I guess a family tradition. So, so you were into photography, right? You're really big into photography. So you'll love this story. I was probably still third grade, and my dad's running the dining room in the Iwani Hotel, which is a beautiful dining room.
Absolutely.
And one morning, my dad's like, "Son, come here." So he drags me over to this table, and there's this old guy with a gray beard. And my dad basically introduced me to Ansel Adams.
You're kidding me.
Right before Ansel Adams passed away, Ansel Adams asked me, here I am, this little third grader. He goes, "Well, do you like photography?" What are you going to say? I never even thought about it, but I'm going to say yes. I knew who he was at that point. I'm like, yeah. He's all, "You should go down to my gallery and take some classes." And I think I begged my parents, and this is years ago, but here I am, this little third or fourth grader running around following this photography class through the valley. And that kind of gave me I really got the drive to kind of get into photography from there. Not that I did it as a career, but I was always interested in it, and I've shot a lot of events, over all these years and
right.
wheeling. But one thing that taught me is the effect you can have on a kid just by saying, hey, you should do, especially if you're not the parent. If you're the parent, kids don't listen to you.
Hey, you should do this.
But,
yeah, right. Whatever.
yeah. But I've done that with some of my former high school students. Hey, you're really good at welding. Maybe you should look into this. You think so? Yeah. And they listen. As long as it's not their own parent.
Exactly.
But lived in the valley for several years, and finally my dad got sick of that, and we loaded up the RV again. My grandmother at the time was living in San Diego. Went down to San Diego in between jobs and ended up exploring the whole Southern California desert and Zabrega Desert. Finally, my dad landed another job back in Virginia.
Oh.
This time we took the middle route across the United States, through Colorado and
What then was called the 50, now the 70?
yeah, whatever. I don't know. I probably, well, highways change, but we get to Virginia. That job didn't last long for my dad, and went back up to Rochester for a minute, and he goes, well, I got another job back in California. So once again, third time across country. By the time I got to high school, like I said, I'd seen almost every single one of the continental United States, everything from the Grand Canyon to the Everglades in Florida to every Civil War battlefield you could think of. And I really fell in love with this country by looking out the window of that Wagoneer. So that's kind of my whole growing up story.
Awesome. And Jeep, do you like apple pie?
What's that?
Do you like apple pie?
Oh, yeah, I love apple pie.
Okay, Jeep, apple pie, America. There you go.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
And kind of that tradition I've continued with my three sons. Logan was with me and my buddy Chris when we ran Rally Venture, and Jeff Knowles Rally Venture, and all the events that my kids have been to, and just like you with Rich, my kids have grown up on the con.
Yep.
Granted, Dad never had the best vehicle.
Neither did this one. Trust me.
Yeah, I had a 93 YJ that I bought in college with a Dana 30-35, lockers front and rear, and I would with 33-inch tires. And I'd be up there on the trail watching everybody else with bigger rigs. My kids would be in the back in car seats. And I don't know what I did right, but they love wheeling.
That's perfect.
Peyton, my oldest boy, he just got it in his head that he wanted a flat fender. And I kind of know the reasoning. I mean, Peyton always loved, a friend of mine, Sammy Sievert, has a flat fender.
Slinky.
No, that's the other Sam. That's Sam.
Oh, that's right.
Silvera.
Yeah.
Sam Silvera had Slinky, which is one of my all-time favorite rigs. I can remember being up on the Rubicon and had to be 99 or something. He was with a club that's no longer around called Mountain High Toys, and that thing was just unbelievable, back then.
Yep.
And I know Peyton was really into those flat fenders. I think it was from both the Sams, and probably Jeff Mello chirping in his ear a little bit. But Peyton started researching those Jeeps. The kid's a flat fender expert. He knows everything just from constantly researching online. And he's constantly sending me, as soon as he turned 15, Dad, can we buy this one? Can we buy that one? And he had saved up some money. And a buddy of mine, Matt Ritchie, calls me out of the blue. He's, hey, man, I'm sitting on this 41 Willys MB. I haven't driven it in years. And we go up there and look at the thing. And I fell in love with it. Oh, this is awesome. It's a slat grill 41 Willys. So I pop open the hood, and there's a 22 RE.
Oh, no.
So I text pictures to Jeff Mello, and all Jeff Mello says is, close the hood, walk away. But Peyton just fell in love with it, and he didn't have enough money to buy it. So Matt says, you know what, I think this is just so cool what you're doing with your kid. And it's what my dad did with me. He's all, just have him make payments on it. And Peyton paid that thing off. So he daily drove that to school.
Wow.
And it runs on propane. It's old school. It's got quarter elliptical in the back. But I seriously think that that's probably the oldest daily driven, well, if it's still considered a Jeep, daily driven Jeeps in the world. It was built December 9th, 1941, 2 days after Pearl Harbor.
And then somebody put a Japanese motor into it.
Yeah, I know, and Toyota axles. But man, that thing scrambles over the Rubicon like a side-by-side.
Right.
Here I am lumbering in my big wagon, scraping over everything and worried I'm going to break down every 5 minutes, and Peyton's just running circles around me. But he loves the thing. And then the day he graduated, our neighbor, who's now since passed away, our neighbor was a big hot rod guy, and Peyton would go over there and help him with his cars. And the neighbor had this 94 C4 Corvette, and Peyton loved that Corvette. Well, graduation day, right after he graduates, we're having people come over, and he goes, "Dad, I want to buy Bob's Corvette so I can take it down to San Luis Obispo." He's studying welding down at Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo.
Nice.
And I'm all, "Peyton, Bob probably wants 10, 12, 14,000 bucks for that. I don't have 10, 12, 14,000 bucks. He's like, "No, Dad. He said he'll sell it to me for just 7. I'm like, "Peyton, I don't have $7,000. He tells me, "Well, I got 6,600 bucks saved up. Can you float me $400? I'm like, "Are you kidding? What am I going to do? Tell my kid no?"
Exactly.
So, yeah. So he had, kid's 18. He's already got 2 vehicles.
Nice.
So he bought that and went down to, I'm so proud of my boy. He's working for Dave Schlossberg down there at Poly Performance, studying welding and just loving it.
That's great, working for Poly.
Oh yeah, Peyton loves that job. He's just, I'm just so glad he got on with that company. It's been great for him. He's learned a lot. He's grown up so much in the past, whatever it's been, year.
So what about your other kids?
So Logan, same exact thing. Logan wanted a flat fender, and same thing. He researched constantly. I mean, I would get 7 text messages a day, either Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and he found a 53 flat fender up in Sonora. And man, it was rough. The body was messed up. There was no rear drive shaft and had the wrong transfer case in it. So Logan gets this thing, bought it himself. We tow it down here. I'm like, man, I'm in over my head. That's another thing is growing up, my dad would work on the wagon, and I can hold a flashlight. I'm good. But, my dad did all the work. So I've swapped out an axle on the trail, but I'm not super mechanical.
Right.
And when it came to my kids, they had asked me something. I go, I don't know. You figure it out. Go call Jeff Mello, call Mark Harris.
There you go.
And so I've made them do all their own work. So Logan my garage is still right now a mess because of Logan. But I don't think there's one bolt he's turned on that. He hasn't turned on that Willys.
That's great.
He redid the transmission. He's on his second engine. Mark Harris helped him with the gears. He put a whole new rear end in it. Now on Wednesday, he found a front 44 because it's got a front 30 in it right now. And the same thing, he drives every day to school. And every day they drive to school, the Schneider curse kicks in. Brakes go out. Linkage for the clutch isn't working. So my kids are working on stuff on the side of the road, just like me. And then
Are you holding the flashlight for him?
Yeah, yep. Sometimes I'll get in there and get my hands dirty. And then Braden, poor kid, he says he wants the Wagoneer.
Uh-oh.
We'll see. But it's not just my own kids. Last year, Logan wanted to go up and go wheeling. and no, his rig wasn't ready. So he wanted to tow the wagon up, and we weren't going to go to the Rubicon. My club, the Kybers Crawlers, we would kind of stick south of Highway 50 up Silver Fork Road.
Right.
This will be our 30th year. When I say club, that's in quotes. We don't have bylaws. We don't have rules. A lot of the guys aren't really hardcore wheelers. My buddy Alfred Heck likes to call us the Unclub. But for 30 years, we've been going up there. We go up in the spring, and the thing was, we'd wheel as far back in the snow as we could get, where nobody else could get to us, and we'd camp. So our territory is kind of up. Well, now it's all burned up, but up Mormon Immigrant Trail, Silver Fork Road, everything south of Kybers. But anyway, last November, Logan wants to go camping and wheeling. And I had to borrow a tow rig and a trailer because my truck won't tow my wagon. We towed it up there. I got Logan, 3 of his friends. And 3 of his friends have never been wheel camping. You know, they've been in RVs. So we get up in the middle of nowhere. Logan proceeds to break the wagon ear in about 45 minutes. He blew out my front drive shaft and only had 2-wheel drive. Friday, everything was cool. Saturday was great. Went driving around, exploring. And Saturday night, we crashed out maybe 11:30, midnight. And in the middle of the night, I start hearing rain come down, thick rain just hitting the tent. As I'm laying there for a while in the tent, I'm like, man, the sides of the tent aren't wet. So I unzip the window, and we're in about 4 inches of thick, wet, heavy snow, and it's dumping. And I start thinking, man, if I was here with all my buddies, it wouldn't be a problem. I just go back to sleep. But I've got the wagon, this tow rig. I'd have to load the wagon on the trailer. We got, I had beer cans probably all around the fire pit covered in snow. So I wake kids up. We got to get out of here. We got to get out. So we start loading up, and my buddy Dave Chick, who lives in Pollock, he had been up there earlier in the day. He bombed up the hill to find us. So he shows up about half after midnight. And I told Logan, look, you're going to have to drive the wagon out. I'm going to take the tow rig out. But because we had to go down this hill, up north-south road, which is a real steep hill.
Right.
In 4 or 5 inches of snow. And Logan proceeds to tell me, Dad, I think the wagon's out of gas. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't want to get stuck in this. So Chick's got like 2 or 3 gallons of gas. You pour it in the wagon. We start driving out. And it took us a while crawling through that snow to get up to Mormon Immigrant Trail. And as soon as we get up to Mormon Immigrant Trail, it was the weirdest thing. It's thunder and lightning and dumping snow. And Logan's friends in the back seat, because he's driving the wagon, their eyes are just as big as hard-boiled eggs. Well, Logan runs out of gas. So me and Chick got to go all the way down into Pollock, get gas, come all the way back up. So those kids sat at the side of the road for about an hour in a thunder and lightning storm. Long story short, man, those 3 kids, my son's friends, they were sold. A normal person would be like, oh, that sounds miserable. But for us being wheelers, that's what makes memories.
Yep.
Is kind of, and that kind of a trip would have been a big deal for our crowd, right? We go snow wheeling all the time, get stuck in stuff all the time. But for kids, that's just something they've never experienced. And now Logan's friend Ryan, he moved to Idaho. He just bought himself a TJ. Another one of Logan's friends is buying a 4Runner, and they've since gone up with me on like 2 or 3 other trips. They're sold.
That's awesome.
Well, that's one thing that I love to do. I love to introduce people to kind of our lifestyle, and I love to have people see things and experience things. I did it with all my neighbors when I first moved to Discovery Bay. I took them up to Donner one year for a We Rock event.
Nice.
And there was some bonus line We got our coolers of beer. We're standing on the rocks back there, and there was some bonus line, and one of my neighbors was like, "Well, what are those two cones up on the top of that rock?" I'm like, "Well, they go up that." He's all, "Bullshit! No, they go up that." And I don't remember who it was. Mike Bowe, somebody just shot up this wall, and they were floored, and they were sold. And I got a lot of my neighbors on my old street here in Discovery Bay. I think 4 families ended up buying Jeeps after going up and camping and wheeling with me.
Well, that's awesome. I've always said that my job is I sell people their adrenaline back, and it's kind of, like what we're doing with the sportsmen or when I take people wheeling for the first time, it's kind of, I equate it to, that drug dealer that hangs around at the grade school giving it away so that they've got them hooked to the rest of their life. It's same thing with wheeling. And I'm glad to hear that other people do the same thing.
Well, I try to explain the Rubicon to people, and you just don't get it until you get up there. I tell people I can show you lakes clear in Lake Tahoe. You can see every star in the night sky, swim in a swimming hole in the springs, and it's not until you get up there and experience it. The Rubicon's so much more than just wheeling. It's an experience.
True.
And it gets me when these people are online. Well, I'm going to take 2 days to get through the Rubicon. Is that enough? And I'm thinking, nope. Not if you're really going to explore it.
True.
Several years back, a buddy of mine, Sean Russell, he was leading tours through the Rubicon, and he hires me to do this run across the trail where he's leading 13 Jeeps from Belgium. And he asked me to go along, kind of help out. And now, I'm not an expert on the trail by any means. I mean, but I do know a lot of the history. I'm a huge history buff. And so it's kind of like the tour guide along with the spotter. And it was crazy. We get to the Safeway in Pollock Pines, and I'm filling up back of my Jeep, filling up my cooler with ice, and I turn all these Belgian guys. They actually shipped their Jeeps all the way across the Atlantic, drove their Jeeps across country, visited a bunch of different spots, and then the basically end of the trip was going to be wheeling the Rubicon. I pour my ice in the cooler, and I got ice left over. So I'm like, "Hey, here, you guys need any more ice?" And they're looking at each other, sounding like Beaker from the Muppets. "Oh, ice. What do we need ice for?" I'm like, "We're going to be on the trail for a week. You want to keep stuff cold?" And they all open up the back of their Jeeps. They don't use ice in Belgium. They all had refrigerators.
Right.
And it just blew me away. And then they had 0 modifications, because remember, in Europe, you can't modify a vehicle. There's no aftermarket parts. They had no lift, no nothing. And but we walked them across the Rubicon with almost no damage. But again, they would sit around the campfire and say, "Man, we have nothing like this in Europe."
No, because they do mostly dirt roads.
Yeah, that's 4-wheeling.
Yeah, and even though the Rubicon may have started off as a dirt road, it's definitely not just a dirt road.
No.
You ain't taking no Model T across it now.
No, not anymore. It changes every year, though. When the weather hits, and that's the other cool part about the trail is everything's a little bit different. You always see something new. My problem is I just stick to the Rubicon. I've never done Fordyce.
I've never done the whole trail.
Well, if I'm up on the con and I break down like I always do, I know someone's going to be close to help me out. I'm that guy. But I got a buddy of mine that's been begging me to do Doozy Ersham, which I don't know if the wagon will be too big for that trail or not. But I'd love to do it. Looks like a beautiful trail. But then I think, man, if I bust something bad in my Wagoneer, what am I going to do?
Make sure you got 2 other vehicles to help tow you out.
Well, hey, that's the problem is towing that thing out. It's heavy. That's a beast.
Yep.
Well, was it last summer? Last summer, Peyton's Willys stopped getting propane. We couldn't figure out why. Just couldn't get it started. So the Wagoneer actually towed his Willys out from about Indian Trail. And coming out, I was towing him over a little ledge, and something happened. He slammed on his brakes to stop. He crashed in the back, and he broke his brake linkage. So he had no brakes, no power, and I had to pull him through the bowl. And the Wagoneer is carbureted. As soon as that Motorcraft 2150 gets at a certain angle, it's there's that engine's starving. And I was so panicked. I was panicked about pulling him down through that bowl with no brakes or nothing. So we had to date. My buddy Chris Tholke has a near identical Wagoneer. He's the guy that I got this wagon from. And we daisy chained Peyton's Willys between our two wagons, and everybody's taking pictures of us. All these like overlander guys showing up. We get down to the bottom of the bowl, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to tow him up. That hill right before the southern side of the bowl, that hill right before you gatekeeper. And thank God there was a guy there from the Auburn Jeep Club. He's, oh, here, just follow me up this line. And I tried to get up that hill, didn't quite make it, so they had to lash me up and pull us all up the hill. But again, that's just, hey, my kid's Jeep broke down. But man, what great memories. My kid will never forget that. And it was just, one thing after another. So even your worst trips turn into your best trips, right?
Absolutely. Those are the things that make memories. If everything runs smooth, there's no story. It's like no good story ever started with a salad.
Yeah.
It's just... So the family's all into wheeling. Let's talk some about your teaching and coaching. And I don't think you're coaching anymore right now, I understand, but but you're how did you get into, when did you make that decision?
Well, when I was in high school, my life there's only three things I thought about in high school. It was girls, football, and cars.
Right. And
football was my life in high school. I was okay. I mean, the high school I was at, we had an awesome football team. We were co-champions of the MVAL my senior year. My original plan was going to the Navy. And this college, it was called Cal State Hayward back at the time, they called me up one day and said, hey, look, you want to come up here and play football for us? Because I played center. So get to Cal State Hayward, and all I cared about when I was in college was playing football, girls and cars. And played football Cal State Hayward till they cut the program. But football for years was my life. And then I started doing sales, and then I started playing professional paintball. I played professional paintball for several years.
Wait. Professional paintball?
Yeah.
That's a thing?
Oh, yeah. I actually, in college, it was my second job. I worked for an indoor paintball field. And me and my buddies would literally play paintball every night at that field. We'd close the field at about 10 or 11. We'd play from 11 to 2 in the morning, drink beers in the parking lot. And then every weekend we were doing tournaments. And I'm kind of weird. I get focused on one thing. It's like wheeling. I just get focused on it and I go 100%.
Oh, I understand.
So,
I've done the same thing.
Yeah. So it was football for, my focus. Then it was paintball was my focus. And then actually through paintball, a guy walks into we had a paintball store too. We had a pro shop. And these two guys walk in, Rick and Martin. And I'm just a kid, 19, 20 years old. And start playing paintball. These two guys are a little bit older than us. Well, Rick would end up becoming one of my closest friends, and it was Rick and I that started my four-wheel drive club, the Kybridge Crawlers, 30 years ago. He brought me up to the mountains, a couple other guys, with our Jeeps. After all these years of football, I got back into the let's go drive around and explore wheeling like I did when I was a kid. Rick got me back into that. And
Thank you, Rick.
Well, what you got to thank Rick for is land use.
Okay.
I was always the big mouth on pirate. Rick was the one that got it all done, and he's still up there working in El Dorado National Forest. Keep our public lands open to us. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, getting into. So anyway, I went into sales and hated it. I was all stressed out, and then I started teaching, and teaching opened up the door to coaching football. So I coached football high school football for almost 20 years, maybe a little bit less. O-line and D-line. Loved it, but football's kind of changing. Kids are changing. And I don't know, maybe I just got burned out after a while. A lot of kids now don't want to hit. Kids don't seem to be as tough as they used to be. And with Brady's doing travel hockey, my youngest boy. So there's no way I can coach football when I've got hockey games every Saturday.
Absolutely. And there's as much contact in hockey as there is in football.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it's kind of encouraged.
Oh, yeah. Brady likes that part. Well, he can't check at this level yet, but he'll throw a hip or he'll push some kid off him. I love it. But, football was a huge part of my life, and I just, it's weird how life gets so busy with other things. I figured my focus has to be more on my own kids.
Right. Family first, always.
Yeah. So hockey and wheeling and wrenching on Jeeps. It's about all the Schneiders do.
And hate on sea lions.
Oh, don't even. Do you know how that all started? Did you hear that?
No.
So my son Logan's got we live on the water. We're in Discovery Bay.
Right.
I got my boat, and my son Logan has a catamaran. So I'm out there one day doing something on the catamaran. I'm kind of spread pontoon to pontoon. Well, when those sea lions breach out of the water, they come up, there's like this sucking noise they make when they suck in the air. Well, this massive sea lion just breaches right between my legs underneath that catamaran. I about had a heart attack. I just fell on the dock. Well, they say a full-grown California sea lion will get like 12 feet. Well, Logan's catamaran is 12 feet long. This thing's like three feet longer than the catamaran. So I've been coming out here to Discovery Bay for years, fishing and boating, and you'd see a sea lion occasionally, but that year the sea lion scared the hell out of me. We had 8 of them stuck in the back bays here in Discovery Bay, and they were just massacring the fish population. And you know me, I like to irritate people on social media with the whole man of leisure thing. So I just started complaining about sea lions. And then I lucked out because suddenly that same year, people started getting attacked by sea lions in the San Francisco Bay. I'm like, dang. But they're an invasive species in here. And people just don't understand that. They chase the salmon in, and then they eat all the striped bass. And yeah, my bay, go out there and try to fish, there'd be nothing. But they only show up in the winter, so I can start complaining about them end of November.
There you go. Pretty soon now. Okay, everybody, get ready.
Yeah, see, I bug everybody about sea lions in the winter, about all my time off in the summer with the man of leisure alter ego.
There you go.
But yeah, with teaching, it's so nice having all that time off, to spend with my boys. And teaching and coaching, I gotta say, I really don't miss the coaching. That was a lot of time. But I couldn't imagine my life without teaching. There's not one morning I wake up and go, damn, I love my job. not one morning I wake up and think, damn, I got to go to work like I did back when I was doing sales.
Is it because you get to influence youth?
Part of it. Well, here's kind of a confession. I've thought about it a lot. I mean, I like to make people better. I like to show people new things. And I don't teach a traditional subject. You know, I'm not like a math history teacher. And a couple of the classes I'm teaching are like freshman foundations, business communications, and I teach driver's education. Not in the car, but classroom driver's ed.
Okay.
But in some of my classes, what I do is the first thing is we spend 2 weeks on this. First couple of weeks of like in my foundations classes, the kids come up with 30 detailed life goals. They can't say I want a car or I want a house. They got to say I want a red 1995 Dodge Viper V10 with saw blade wheels and pipes on. You know, they've got to come up with these detailed life goals.
Okay.
And these kids have never thought about what they wanted. So they'll write down 2 things and get lost. You know, so I have them research their goals, visualize their goals. And once they come up with their life goals, I say, okay, well, how are you going to afford this? So then I show them a budget, how much it costs to live. And then from there, they look at careers. Okay, well, I want to make this much money to buy all these goals. What jobs can I get? And it's great because you get some girls who are like, well, wait, I don't want to be a 3rd grade teacher. They only, you know, they start at like $38,000 a year. So they research their careers, and then I say, okay, well, you found your career you want. How are you going to get that career? So I don't call it a college project. I don't think every kid should necessarily go to college. So we do an education project, and they plan out how they're going to get to that career. So
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you for thanking me.
I mean, it's refreshing to hear that there's classes like that. Is that standard in some schools, or is it just?
I think it's just specific to my school district. I'm very lucky to be in the school. I love the school district I'm in. It's just such a great district, and I think it's just for our district.
Because Shelley has been doing a newsletter, and a lot of it. I mean, there was a money management newsletter she was doing or still doing, and then there's some motivational stuff. But she wrote a curriculum about life skills because they're not being taught anywhere, and especially she wrote it years ago because her and a friend did a presentation for the NFL because all these guys that were, you know, coming out of college to play in the NFL had absolutely zero life skills, as we know. And, you know, they've been pampered all their life, basically, you know, because if you're a star in high school and in college, you know, things can be a lot easier. And she was, you know, how to manage your money, how to, you know, control your friends, that kind of thing, because those friends become detrimental, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, the NFL started doing their own thing instead of taking their curriculum and hiring them to do it. But you know, that's what happens when you come up with an innovative idea. But that's awesome that there's somewhere that is teaching skills like that.
Yeah, well, sometimes we forget, you know, that these kids, there's just so much they don't know. There's stuff you assume they know. It's like everybody teases me, oh, you're teaching driver's ed. Well, the thing is, these kids, this generation, well, when I was in that Wagoneer growing up, I'm watching my dad drive, I'm looking out the window. These kids, the entire time they're growing up, is they're in a car, their faces are in their cell phones.
Right.
They know things that you would assume, you know, what the painted lines on the road means, what a yield sign means. They have no clue. And it's not just about driving. I've had it. Kid asked me, I'm sitting at my desk, kid comes up and goes, hey, Schneider, what time is it? Well, I got a clock on the wall. So I just point up at the clock. So he looks up at the clock. He's like, well, what does that say? I'm like, you're kidding me.
Damn.
The kid didn't know how to read a regular analog clock because he's grown up with digital
Yeah.
clocks his entire life. It just blew me away. And I'm reminded of that every day, how much these kids are just don't know.
Teach them how to make change without looking into the I mean, it's basic math, but it's a life skill that I can't believe. I watched a kid one time. He helped the customer in front of me, and the customer handed him the $20 and some change, and the kid only put the $20 in, and then had to cancel the transaction and put in so he could put in the $20 and like 28 cents so that he could make change because he couldn't figure it out. And I get up there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do the same thing. And the kid had to do it again. And I'm like, dude, it's really simple. Okay. I just gave you the change. You just add $1. And he's like, what? I don't get it. And he just canceled the transaction and went through it again. The other thing, since you're a driver's ed teacher, teach people to merge.
Oh no, yep, I do that.
This country, we're putting in all these traffic circles now. It'll take 4 generations until people start to use the traffic circles like they're meant to be, which is constant flow, not stop signs.
Yeah. Yep.
It does not help our country's transportation needs right now having traffic circles because nobody knows how to frickin' merge.
Yeah, they're trying to make us like Europe.
Yeah.
We don't know these tracks, roundabouts.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, that's fine. But now I forgot what I was talking about.
You were talking about educating the kids.
Yeah. Well, here's my confession. I've been thinking about it. I love storytelling. Every time I teach, I'm packaging everything up in a story.
Right.
And I found out a long time ago. I could sit there and lecture, and it would go in one ear and come out the other. Kids wouldn't remember it. But then I've got this, I guess it's a ghost story about a wheeling trip that I told 20 years ago. And I'll run into these kids, and they'll remember every single thing from that story from 20 years ago, but they won't remember a lecture. So when I teach, I package everything into a story. I'm not saying, hey, stop at the limit line at a stop sign. I'm telling story after story after story of people that rolled stop signs or didn't see somebody pull out in front of them. And the kids remember that better.
Right.
So storytelling is, we go to war over stories, and it's whoever's getting the story out there the most are the ones that are in power. Storytelling is very powerful.
Yeah, it is. Awesome.
But in thinking about it, one day I'm going to be gone. And I think one reason I teach is I want to be remembered. I want these kids 30, 40 years from now, some kid's going to say, oh, I had this, fat guy with a baseball hat and sunglasses and Dickie shorts. And, he taught me how to set my mind to a goal and go after it. So it's kind of my confession there.
Impact.
I want to make an impact. I want to be remembered. And I'm not to my own horn, but I think I have. I think I've done it. I've got a lot of former students on my social media that to this day thank me for stuff. I'm an ordained minister, and I've even married about 5 different former students. So, yeah, it's just showing people new stuff, making an impact, and I think it's been even more fun with my son's friends. That I'm slowly brainwashing into becoming wheelers.
And is that how you approach your freelance writing as well?
Yeah, it's the stories. I don't know if I want to make a difference when I'm writing. I think in my writing I just want to more entertain. I mean, I wrote about land use for so many years where I was wanted to make a difference. But I've been working on For about 4 years now, I've been working on an article about a guy that I think is the most interesting person in rock sports. Should I say his name? Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
John Reynolds, JR.
Oh, yeah.
That guy is he's amazing. And he's probably wondering what the hell's happening with this story, because 4 or 5 years ago, I talked to him about writing it on him. And basically it's nothing like we've ever done in the industry. I'm not, doing an interview like you hear with, somebody and just asking questions. I'm writing a story just kind of about him. And, I don't know, I just love creating it. It's just taking so long, and think life gets in the way.
How many words are you up to, do you think?
Oh God, that's the thing, is that I don't know what I'm going to do with it now, because it's going to be long. If you go to journalism, so my degree is in communications.
Right.
So if you go to journalism school, it's kind of close to speech comm, which is like my major. But everybody in journalism school, you're supposed to read this magazine article from the 60s. It's called Frank Sinatra Has a Cold. And the guy that was writing the article was trying to get an interview with Sinatra, and Sinatra wouldn't give him an interview. So all he did was follow around Sinatra and just watch Sinatra and the Rat Pack. And it's a beautiful magazine article, all done in story form, and it really, really shows Sinatra as a person. So that was kind of the format I wanted to do with JR. So I'm slowly working on that. One day I'll spit it out, but it's going to be long. But we've got so many stories from our industry. And there's so much that isn't told that we don't hear about, and stories from wheeling trips and events. And there's only so much you can get from a Facebook post or a Twitter feed.
True.
And I'm kind of missing, Pirates faded away. Now we've got irate 4x4, but I'm missing the bulletin boards, because I think you could just have more wording. You could make a super long Facebook post, nobody's going to read it, but on a bulletin, old school bulletin board, you had more to look at. It's like a magazine, right? Well,
Right.
Like with your magazine, you can explain more, go more in depth than what we have on social media.
True.
And I
Social
think-
media is sound bites.
Yeah, I think social media is killing us in the industry. Peyton and I were a couple years back. We're coming off the trail, and we're coming into the bowl again, right at the bottom of Whalebones. You know where Whalebones is?
Yep.
On the Rubicon, right? Right at the bottom, there's this guy, and we're heading out. It's late in the afternoon, and this guy's out. He's having a horrible time trying to get up Whalebones. He had some Toyota something, a newer Toyota, all these stickers all over the outside of his vehicle. So I get down there, and I'm like, well, did you air down? He's like, well, yeah, I'm aired down to 20 pounds or something. I'm like, no, you got to air down more, man. So he's starting to air down, and he's got his wife or girlfriend gets out, and I asked her, are you guys by yourselves? So, yeah. I'm all, look, I don't know if you should be going in the trail by yourselves. This is just the very start. You haven't even started the trail. You got a lot more trail in front of you. And she's like, really? Like, how much farther? I'm like, you got a ways to go. So, yeah, it took us an hour and a half to get here.
You got a week?
Like, wait, what? An hour and a half to get through Gatekeeper in the bowl? So I'm like, you got to turn around. And what it was one of those Instagram, whatever they call it,
Insta-famer.
influencer guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's so many people that think, oh, I'm just going to go up and do this trail, do that trail. Well, they're not really prepared for it, and don't go alone. It's just kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. We see it a lot everywhere we go. Um, there's a big, we do a lot of stuff in Texas, and there's a big internet club, I will call it, in Central Texas, and most of the conversation on there is people trying, they get their Jeep and like, help me name my Jeep. And it's like, where should I go? I want to go up to this place, and oh yeah, you got to be really careful and all this. And I'm like, oh my God, people, and I get it. I get it because it's become a social thing, which is fine because it started off for me. Well, it didn't start off for me as a social thing. In fact, it was kind of more of an antisocial thing. I always wheeled alone, and I still wheel alone a lot, more than I probably should.
Yeah, but you've got the experience to do it too.
Yeah, and if I don't like working on my own stuff. I'll gladly pay somebody to do the work, but when you're broke down, you need to be able to keep going somehow. So you gotta be able to figure things out. But nowadays people can't even change their own freaking flat tire.
No.
And they're going onto these, luckily back, anywhere west or east of the Rockies, it's almost all parks. So people can't get in too much trouble, as long as they're, safety wise, they can get into a lot of trouble, but they're not going to get stuck at a park for 3 days trying to figure out how to get out,
right,
like they can on the Con or Fordyce or Ducey, or the Hammers, wherever. There's so many places in the West because of the public lands, but they just it's become social, and social media, like you said, it's not a good thing. Everybody used to say everybody is uninformed because we can't get communication, we can't get the news quick enough. Well, now that we have ways to get it out quickly, are we getting the right information?
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother thing. But are we even learning anything? Because everybody goes, oh, I got to learn to put my air filter in. I'm going to look at YouTube.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask a question on a specific board that I'm on, vehicle specific or something like that, about something that I'm having an issue with. And they're like, well, there's like 16 YouTube videos on it. And it's like, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm just going to go out there and tear this thing apart and learn it.
Yeah, figure it out myself.
Yeah.
Well, that's what my boys, do. You go out there and figure it out yourself. Go build that carburetor, Logan.
And then once you've figured it out, then do a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Some of these YouTube videos out there are just ridiculous.
Oh, they talk too much, or they film for 40 seconds of just the floor. It's like, oh, I can't handle it. But yeah, I think so many of these people, like in my area here in NorCal, you get all these Facebook Jeep clubs, the mom with the JK. Oh, I'm going to go do the Rubicon. And for us, the Rubicon, let's face it. I mean, it's not a hard trail.
No.
But from our perspective,
right.
You've seen the Hammers and all that. It's nothing. But from their perspective, as soon as they get to the head of the trail, they're, it's like I said, it's like the guys from Europe that I led across the trail. They were just blown away.
Yeah, there's no stripe down the middle of the trail to tell you where to go.
Well, we got the little orange reflectors that I had to glue down one year with FOTR. But even so, I don't know, it's like I was talking about with the kids. There's so much kids don't know that we expect them to know. And for us, I guess Rubicon's not hard, right? Or we know how to swap out an axle. These other people don't.
True.
Well, I was driving home from work, this is a couple years ago, and there's this Jeep in front of me that's just barely crawling. And it looked like a high school kid. He pulls over the side of the road. So me, being the nice guy that I am, Oh yeah, okay, this is a high school kid. So I pull over. Hey, everything okay? He's like, I don't know what's going on. My Jeep's just not moving. I'm thinking, oh, engine and limp mode. So I get in there and I look around the Jeep for him. He had it in 4 low. And it's like kind of that's what we're dealing with, right? This kid had no idea what 4 low was, why his Jeep was crawling down the road. I don't know. It just kind of makes me worried for the future.
So this Rebel rally that Shelly and I are preparing to work on right now, we're going to be leaving. I mean, we're down in Vegas right now, or Henderson, and we're tech and everything is this week. It's, all women's navigational rally. One of the things I like about it is watching these women grow, doing things that take them out of their comfort zone. On the first Rebel, there was this two, well, to me, younger women, and they were pretty clueless that first year. They had learned how to change the tires on their vehicle like 4 days before leaving for the rally. They're on the rally. They blow out both tires on the passenger side at the same time, or on the same rock. Luckily, they have 2 spares. So we see them, watching them on tracking. They're sitting there forever. So we decided, okay, we need to go over there and make sure they're okay. By the time we get there, they're gone. And when tracking updates, they're down the wash. Well, they're outside the wash, and they're spotting themselves through, because they're driving a Porsche Cayenne, and they're trying to get down through this rocky wash. And they're doing a really good job at it. So what happened is, they blew the tires. Their husbands had just taught them how to change the tires. They got the tires changed themselves. They got them up onto their roof rack, the old tires and rims, and they were really proud of themselves for changing their own tires. And I agree,
Yeah.
And it gave them a lesson in that they could do it on their own.
Yep.
Well, now the driver of that car, she's driving her kids to soccer or whatever, and I'll see a Facebook post where she goes, "Yep, I'm teaching my girls what I've learned. When we see somebody broke down on the side of the road, like a flat tire, and there's, it could be a guy, it could be some women in a car, they'll pull over, and she'll help them change that tire."
Yeah, awesome.
And it's like, that is so cool, because how many times do you go down the road and you see 2 guys that are in their 20s or less, and they're on the cell phone with flat tire, and they're either calling dad or AAA, come get us, I can't change the tire. It's like, oh, come on, people. Basics.
But that's kind of the soul of the 4-wheel drive community right there too, right? If you're on the trail and someone's on the side of the road broken down, you stop and say, "Hey man, you need anything?
Yep.
Need help?" And I think that's why our community's just filled with so many just really good people. Because if you're up there on the trail, stuck in the middle of nowhere, broken down, you need to rely on others, and you want to help somebody out because you don't know when you're going to be next. Seems like I'm always next with my wagon, but I guess that's what I like about teaching too. I like it when suddenly, my son is out there rebuilding his carburetor, and it's like he's getting it. He sits there and figures it out himself, and now he can always do it.
Sweet. So what's next for Kurt and the Schneiders?
Well, I don't know. I've bounced around so much. I worked so hard on land use for so many years, and with my writing, I've kind of really, I think what's next is I just want to get my kids up on the trail even more. I want to go camping. I think it's just time to step back from so much. A lot of the stuff I've done in the industry. I've worn so many different hats that I don't know. There was a point there where some of it was, well, land use was never fun.
No.
I got burned out after JV. JV killed me. But I don't know. I feel like I just need to get up and wheel more. And I think the focus is going to be on the boys, especially Logan. He hasn't really, he wheeled his willies a little bit this summer and this past spring, but he's begging me to get on the trail.
Excellent.
But yeah, the land use thing, I mean, I'm still kind of involved. Not as much as I used to, though. It was just, it wears on you bad. And everybody that's really into land use is a volunteer. And there's a point where it's like, man, this is a lot of work.
It's beating your head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
And it's something that needs to be done, but it's true. New people need to step up and get involved with it, because the guys that have been doing it, however, they decided to do it. I mean, my land use thing was a lot different. It started on the con when, the shutdown happened at Spider, and, because of all the white flowers and all that kind of stuff, and the way the trail was being used. And that's when I, started Trail Patrol, and, which, got taken over by Friends of the Rubicon, which was great, because I was getting burned out on trying to educate people when they'd show up to go on the con and say, okay, here, remember to bring all your trash out, do this, do that. And people would look at me like, why the hell do I need to listen to you? You're just some dude out here. And it was like, because if you don't, I'm going to drag you out of your Jeep and beat your ass. I mean, it's literally what I had to say a couple of times. But, it's, it got really frustrating. And, maybe I didn't always agree with the way the land use groups were dealing with it. And that was another thing. But, they were the ones dealing with it, not me, because at that point I'd gotten burned out as well.
I'd be in phone meetings of people yelling at each other and all this drama. And a lot of times in land use, we eat our young. You get somebody that really wants to make a difference and start stepping up, and everyone, I went through that. People would tell me to shut up. I was such a big mouth on pirate, right?
Yep.
But it's something that's got to be done. And I really think we dropped the ball in the past 4 years, because I think we could have maybe gotten other stuff opened up the way our political, what's the word I'm looking for?
Climate.
Yeah, where our political climate was, we could have possibly got stuff to open up, but some of our organizations are hurting.
Yeah.
That was the most recent thing I did with Irate 4x4. We did a Cal 4 membership drive, which I think came out pretty good. And the thing is, the clubs are dying, right? There's online clubs. There's very few 4-wheel drive clubs, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So the POR, the zombies. I love those guys.
Yeah, but they're all extreme camping clubs anymore.
Hey, zombies still wheel. Those guys still wheel. I love those guys. That club has made a massive difference. I just, here I was the nerdy fat guy with the little YJ back in the day as they're bombing around in their buggies, but they made a difference, raised a lot of money.
Yep.
But now a lot of these new clubs are just, some Facebook group. Let's show up and have a meet and greet and put ducks on each other's Jeeps.
Yeah.
And really, we
let's go open our rooftop tents at the local gas station.
Yeah. Let's go have our Jeep meet and greet. But with the clubs dying, that kind of hurts us, because we don't have these organized groups to really fight and to back up our organizations.
Yeah, and trying to get manufacturers involved. And I'm not talking about the off-road industry manufacturers, the Gen Rights and that kind of stuff, because those guys are doing what they can. But it's the the manufacturers that are selling the four-wheel drive vehicles, that are trying to sell the lifestyle, whether it be UTV or, you know, regular automobiles or trucks. And they keep selling, so they don't give a shit.
Yeah, they sell this lifestyle. They don't necessarily support the lifestyle.
Correct.
But then I think they think too, you know, the average person goes out and buys a Jeep Rubicon, never puts it in the dirt.
Yeah.
You know, they're just buying it to have the look. It's like the guy that drives around my town with a rooftop tent and the snorkel and the gas tanks all the time. It's just for the look. You know, but I guess, you know, it's how people, I guess it's always been that way. But I don't know, I even if we don't agree with some of our organizations, I still think membership's important, because the more members an organization has, the bigger voice it has.
Yeah, and that's what kills us with the environmentalists. Because the environmentalists, it's easy. They get the numbers. They get, you know, they play on people's emotions, you know, like, oh, look at the little seal, you know, that they'll club in the seal thing, you know. You know, that whole thing, or, you know, your 54 cents a week will, you know, save this many children in Africa type thing. You know, that it's that play of emotions that they've been able to do, especially with all the big money out of the big cities, and people that are never going to go use and hike that trail anyway. You know, oh, look at what the big bad off-roaders and the, you know, everybody that's using the forest lands, except that people that are putting, you know, just shoes, their sandals or Birkenstocks on the ground, you know, are doing damage. And people buy into that stuff. And hardcore wheelers, or the wheelers, are like, especially East Coast, they don't understand, because it's all closed off anyway. It's just parks.
Yeah, they don't have the public lands.
Right.
Oh, wheeling's so different all over the country, you know.
Yep.
But what a lot of these people don't understand is, like, when we went through route designation in El Dorado National Forest, it wasn't the Rubicon, wasn't Barrett that was really hurt. It was your normal dirt forest road. You know, when I really got into it was maybe 2002, 2003. Me and Rick Verdun were up camping, not on the Rubicon, just up in El Dorado National Forest, and forest ranger comes in and says, well, yeah, this is a spur route, it's going to be closed. We're like, what are you talking about? Because I remember the time where you could drive right through the woods, everything was open. Then
Right.
It was, well, don't drive through the woods, just stay on all the routes. Okay, we were fine with that. Then they came back in through route designation and started erasing all these roads. One year, there's this real nice campsite with a waterfall, and it's farther back on a stream south of Highway 50. And the Forest Service put up a gate. They closed because it was a spur route, went all the way back and gated it. So we went up there, found the gate. We're like, all right, we're going to have to camp somewhere lower. So we went back down the trail a couple miles. And as we're setting up, I don't know, like 8 or 9 rigs just fly right past us. And not like hardcore rock crawlers, just, you know, pit a couple of Jeeps. And we're like, well, they're not going to go far. They're going to hit a gate. Well, sure enough, I don't know, 8-10 minutes later, these vehicles pull up, and this old man gets out of his truck. He's like, hey, what's with the gate? Well, Forest Service closed the road.
Well, guy, yeah, this is the grandpa, you know, and you could tell there's 3 generations of people there. And he goes, what's with the gate? Oh, the Forest Service closed the road. And he starts tearing up. He's all, you know, my dad back in the 60s brought me back up that hill to this campsite. I brought my son up there. Now my son wants to bring my grandkids up there. Sorry, man. I mean, unless you hike in. He's like, well, I'm 70-something years old. I'm not hiking in. So these route closures, what a lot of people, we think off-road, don't just think lifted vehicle. You could be in a, you know, for God's sakes, a Prius, and it could still be considered an OHV if it is using a dirt forest road.
Right.
And that's what got hit the most, especially in these national forests. just normal dirt routes that lead to campsites or explore through the woods.
Yeah, for years, the hunting camp that we used, buck camp, for opening weekend or opening week, and it's off of McKinstry area. We can't even get to it now unless we hike in now about a mile.
Yeah.
And it's lost, and it's a shame. There was no damage done. There was, it wasn't a heavily used route. It was a small little spur off of a road, but it went in about a mile to a nice spring that actually was dug out in the 50s by Dan Hartwig and his buddies when they went in on horses before there was even roads in there to hunt. And they dug out this spring so that there was always water bubbling up. And now you can't even get to it. And it's just people don't, even the bikers and everybody, the hikers, they still take their car to the end of the road, that dirt road, to go start their activity.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't know this. John Muir, his message has gotten so twisted. I'm a student of Muir from growing up in Yosemite.
Right.
He was about access.
Yes.
He wanted roads built. And the reason he fought for Hetch Hetchy, which they damned, wasn't so much to save Hetch Hetchy, is that was essentially a trail to the High Sierra. That was a gateway to get up to the, higher in the mountains. He was fighting for access. He wanted people to experience the Yosemite and the Sierra, which is one reason he wrote so much about it, is to get people up there. And we're slowly being closed off. And I pray this doesn't happen, but by the time my kids get my age, is there even going to be any dirt roads left?
True.
So we,
I don't know. I don't know I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah. I don't think anybody knows what the answer is. We just got to keep plugging along and keep trying to fight.
Yeah. Now that we got this new BLM chief that just got approved, which is probably one of the worst things that could ever happen to us. We'll see what her push is going to be, which, she'll probably, I don't know. I'm not going to get into it anyway.
Well, if we look at our successes, look, it's good that the Rubicon is a county road.
Yes.
It's, what the Johnson Valley area is federally designated, right? I mean, that's, if we keep doing stuff like that, we'll have a chance. But it takes people getting involved, and it takes, we spend so much on our rigs. It kills me. Spend so much on our rigs, for a price of not even a tank of gas nowadays. The prices for, it doesn't take much to donate a little here or there.
Yeah.
Or what my buddy Rick will tell you, what's even more important is just getting out there and doing work on the trails. He's up there cutting brush all the time and fixing campsites, and same thing on the Rubicon. It's changed in the past couple of years, but just by donating your time to going and helping and not making a mess on the trail.
Yeah. That's the hard part
help
with everybody, all the newbies.
Yeah, it's they don't know they kind of don't know our culture, I guess is what it is. But you watch so many even Jeep advertisements or commercials where they're bombing through some river or, flying down some dirt road, that it all comes back to education.
Yes.
And both you and I have done that for years. It's just, after a while, it just gets, oh God, again, got to explain the same thing like 100th time, like this guy should not be driving his rig through a river, which water quality issues is going to be, it's water quality, air quality. Those are going to be the two. That's where the fight really is.
Yeah, because that's what they've used to control so much, and why we're having these huge super fires. but that's another podcast altogether. So
Yeah.
keep your kids, get your kids up wheeling, get them to take their friends up wheeling. I think that's the best way we can do it, is get the youngest generation out there right now that's able to get out there, get them out there, get them wheeling, get them to love it, and then try to
take them
it.
to events.
Yeah.
Take them to events. My kids, Peyton and Logan will tell you, some of their greatest memories are from the old school rock crawls that I used to bring them to. They loved those. And that's part of it. You learn the whole culture, and you kind of get a love for it. Even if you're just watching somebody else.
Absolutely. Well, Kurt, I want to say thank you so much for coming on board and sharing your history and your thoughts with our listeners. And
well, thank you for having me. I feel like I'm kind of important now. I've settled back a little bit and gotten out of the mix, but yeah, I really appreciate you asking me to be on.
No worries. It's amazing. When I first started this, Shelley goes, okay, put 50 names down on a piece of paper on who you want to, start a list. And the first 50 names went really easy, and then it started to get harder and harder and harder. My list now is over 400 names.
Oh, really?
And it's like, wow, how do I get, and I've only had one person tell me no. Well, no, two. One is like,
wow,
Rich, I'm just too private of a person. I really don't want to get into it. I'm out of that whole scene now, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then somebody else goes, well, you just interviewed this person, and I don't want to be involved with that person at all. And I'm like, well, you're not. We're going to share your story, not his story. No, if he was involved in it, I don't want to be involved in it. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And I don't get it. That one, especially, I get the, I'm too, the privacy thing and all that kind of stuff. I get it. But,
for me, the cool part for me is, it's like, oh, Rich is interviewing Dee Dee. Oh, I got to listen to that, right? Because I adore her. I just love that woman. But then it's like there's some name where I think I know everybody because I've been doing this for so long. I'm like, wow, wait, who is this? So it's always super refreshing. Listen to somebody I know nothing about,
And their story, I mean, it's so weird how we're all related. And what I like about doing these things is so far I know everybody that I've interviewed. At least I've met them. I've had, maybe not broken bread with them, so to speak, but, we're acquainted. But I learned so much more about the person than what I knew before. And I've had friends of these people give me a call or send me a note and say, wow, I've known this guy for 25 years. We're together all the time, and I never knew this about him. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, One more question for you. Why are you a Raiders fan?
You want the long version or the short version?
Short version.
When I was a little kid in upstate New York, there's basically two teams you follow. It's either the Steelers or the Bills. And as a little kid, I'm like, well, I'm going to go with the Steelers because they're mean. And when I moved to Yosemite, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm in California now. Raiders or Niners? Well, Raiders look mean. So I was a Raiders fan. Been one ever since 1980.
Singing them Folsom Blues. There you go. Anyway, Kurt, thank you so much. We'll have to get caught up next time I'm in Northern California again. And
let's go do the trail.
Yeah, let's go do something. All right. I appreciate it, buddy.
Right,
thank you.
All right.
If you enjoy these podcasts, please give us a rating. Share some feedback with us via Facebook or Instagram, and share our link among your friends who might be like-minded. Well, that brings this episode to an end. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next week with Conversations with Big Rich. Thank you very much.